Of the entire Mario series, Super Mario Land 1 and 2 are some of the most undeservedly forgotten entries to the franchise. Sure, you've got some more obscure titles like Hotel Mario and Mario's Time Machine, but Mario Land 1 and 2 I think are the highest quality Mario games lost to time. What happened to these games? What legacy have they left on the Mario franchise, and why have they never seen a remake despite being nearly 30 years old? When I revisited Mario Land 1 for this video, I was surprised by just how short it is. 4 worlds of 3 levels apiece, which comes out to a full game of only 12 levels. I didn't remember it being this small. Considering this game came out in 1989, I won't fault it for having so few levels, especially because it does do a lot with those levels. Even with minimal graphics, Mario Land does succeed at feeling foreign, which is appropriate as it takes place in a different kingdom entirely. The only familiar faces you'll see are Goombas, Koopas, Bullet Bills, and Piranha Plants. Technically, the Goombas are a distinct species called Goombos, and the Bullet Bills are actually named Biff. The Koopas also don't act like they normally do. Instead of kicking the shells, the Koopa shells will explode after a few seconds. I always wondered why this was. Maybe it had to do with hardware limitations of the time, or perhaps it worked better with the simplistic level design. Whatever the case, the reason is probably also related to the strange behavior of the Fire Flower in this game, which bounces around like a retro DVD placeholder screen rather than moving like a fireball does in every other entry. The other, more unfamiliar enemies help differentiate Sarasa Land, the main setting of Mario Land, from the Mushroom Kingdom. I especially like any Easter Island head looking enemy. That really makes it feel foreign and different. The game's villain, Tatanga the Alien, is one of, if not the least memorable Mario villain ever. Tatanga is mostly obscured by his spaceship, making his main design look like this. Obviously, it's a lot harder to make a memorable looking character with these sorts of graphics, but not impossible. I mean, the next game's final boss is pretty memorable, and even in this game we've got more interesting designs, such as this seahorse boss. This game is also the first appearance of Daisy. As far as what this game brought to the Mario franchise as a whole, the list practically begins and ends with Daisy. I can't think of any other major impact this game had on the franchise other than the Mario Land flower appearing in Super Mario Maker 2. Just about everything else from Mario Land 1, its villain, its setting, its characters, have been pretty much lost to time and not acknowledged in many other games at all. So that's Mario Land 1. Now, let's take a look at the sequel. The much more popular Super Mario Land 2, 6 Golden Coins. The sequel to Super Mario Land looks much more similar to a traditional Mario game. It's still smaller than the home console Mario games, but for a handheld system at this time, this game was a breakthrough. The game has 6 main worlds, all of which have their own unique theme. Some of the level themes they did here haven't been done in the series to this very day. Some unique levels include a submarine, a beehive, this toy box place, some guy's house, and the belly of a whale. I also think the game has some great bosses. They're simplistic by today's standards, but pretty special for the time. The bosses all have interesting designs and fit each world theme well. It's kind of pathetic that this Game Boy game from 1992 has better boss design than Super Mario Bros. Wonder's 3 Bowser Jr.'s. Tatanga the Alien also reappears as a boss in this game, but he's been demoted from Final Boss to World Boss. He's just as unmemorable here. Him being confined to a spaceship just does not do his character justice. And then there's the final boss, Wario. Much like how Mario Land 1's biggest contribution to the franchise was the debut of Princess Daisy, Mario Land 2's biggest contribution was the creation of Wario. Unlike the original Mario Land, which is like a Game Boy test sold on shelves, Mario Land 2 is a full-on gaming experience. So why is it that this game never got any remakes? The biggest thing holding Mario Land 1 and 2 back is its dated graphics and lack of color. While even the NES Mario games can be revisited with an almost quaint look at how games used to be, Mario Land is tough to revisit. They're great games to control, but you have to actively move past the visual presentation in order to properly enjoy them. It's understandable that in a time where the only games you could play on the go looked like this, that it would be a great time. But nowadays, it's just not something that latches onto the old dopamine receptors. Even the aforementioned NES games got updated graphics in Super Mario All-Stars, and Super Mario Bros. 2, 3, and World got released on the Game Boy Advance with the Mario Advance series. There are many who find it unfortunate that the original Super Mario Bros. And Super Mario Bros. The Lost Levels didn't end up on the Game Boy Advance in a Super Mario Advance title. And while I agree that it's a shame these NES classics didn't get that sort of release, they did get a graphical upgrade in Super Mario All-Stars. The Super Mario Land games, on the other hand, have never had their graphics updated in an official sense. And while the Mario Land games have been relatively available, they have only ever been released in their Game Boy form. Even just colorizing the games would have gone so far to make them seem less antiquated. Not only does the lack of a Super Mario Advance 5, Super Mario Land 1 and 2 mean that lots of people won't experience these games, it also means that the concepts and characters from these games don't get another chance to shine and find themselves forgotten by Nintendo and the public. I said before that pretty much no characters from these games other than Daisy and Wario have really been seen since. And that's because Nintendo knows that no one would know these characters, so why bring them back? So is it too late for these games to be remade? Well, the Mario Advance 5 ship sailed a long time ago, so it's definitely too late for that. But what are some other ways Mario Land could return? So would a remake of Super Mario Land 1 plus 2 work as a full-on Switch remake? Absolutely not. Even together, that would be a really small amount of content for $60. In order for these games to make a comeback, they would need to go the Mario vs. Donkey Kong route and have new levels in between the old ones. For the Mario Land 1 portion, I think each world would need one more level, as 3-level worlds just feels wrong. It's like, I just got here. We're already at a boss battle? Then it could use about 2 more full new worlds. One between worlds 2 and 3, and another between 3 and 4. I also think the final boss could use a second phase. I don't mind the design of a shooty plain boss battle, but it's not really final boss material. Also, Tatanga deserves to be seen outside the spaceship so his design can be done a little more justice. Then Mario Land 2 could use an extra 2 worlds to bring the world number up to the standard 8, and I think a secret world would be in order as well. Then you add some collectibles throughout the game like Mario Advance's Ace Coins and you've got yourself a proper remake. But perhaps instead of that, there's one more place that Super Mario Land could fit into nicely. Super Mario Maker. One problem with using Mario Maker 3 to acknowledge Mario Land is that Mario Maker has always acknowledged the original graphics of the games it pulls from, and the main problem with Mario Land is its Game Boy graphics. However, if the developers decide to be generous enough to have Mario Land in Mario Maker 3, I think there's a lot they can do with it. They would just have to make an exception to the rule and have it appear with updated graphics rather than its original graphics. I also think they could just simply combine Mario Land 1 and 2, allowing you to place items and enemies from both games should you choose that game style. I also think that the original Mario Land 1 and 2 levels should appear in the story mode of Mario Maker 3. It would allow Nintendo to show off the new mode and give more of an incentive to buy the new Mario Maker while finally giving the Mario Land games a proper re-release. I do hope that if they did this, those wouldn't be the only story mode levels, because I liked the story mode in Mario Maker 2 and would like to see them make some new story mode levels in Mario Maker 3. Mario Land in Mario Maker 3 is a little unlikely for one big reason. The next Mario Maker is probably going to have a focus on Super Mario Bros. Wonder, as that is the most recent 2D Mario game. This will further disincentivize the developers from acknowledging Mario Land 1 and 2. And of the two games, it is clear that Wonder is more deserving of a spotlight. And I think that's representative of why the Mario Land games fell into obscurity. Every every opportunity they've had for a remake has been overshadowed by other bigger things in the series. The Mario Advance series was more focused on the NES and SNES games, and then by the Wii era, the games were just too dated to justify any attention from Nintendo. Or perhaps Mario Land 1 and 2 are just too different from standard Mario. Their status as main series Mario has been inconsistent. Maybe the real reason these games have never been remade is because Nintendo wants you to view them as lesser titles. Sure, play them on the Game Boy Nintendo Switch Online service and look at this relic of the past, but it's not going to be remembered the way that we like to remember the original Super Mario Bros. Or Super Mario World or Super Mario Bros. 3. Those are our big games. Mario Land is just there. You think that's fair? Or do these strange entries to the franchise deserve more acknowledgement? Hey, if you like this video on the Mario franchise, why don't you check out this video right here that delves into the history of Rosalina and asks the question of if she'll ever be playable again in a future game. Or if you're looking for more Nintendo content, check out this other video right here. If you like what I do and want to see me do more of it, consider becoming a channel member or checking out my Patreon, link in the description. Thank you so much for watching. See you next time.